Good morning. The August 20th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. The board continues to meet in a hybrid format. For those here in person, please take a moment to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. For those attending virtually, if you desire an opportunity to speak, we ask that you please keep yourself on mute until the chair recognizes you. When you are called upon, please announce your name and organization and speak loudly and clearly as you present. At this time, I would ask Clerk Celeste Amato for any corrections, additions, and noted abstentions for today's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, everyone. For today's meeting, we do not have any corrections to note. We do have a number of walk-ons this morning, so please refill your coffee cups. We have SB 2512866 for the Bureau of Procurement. This is an award for a cooperative contract, temporary staffing, direct hire, and other employer services for $50 million. We have SB 2512876, Bureau of Procurement, renewal and increase. This is Amendment 2 and 3 to SCON 002106, tree maintenance service, and SCON 002293, tree maintenance services, for $2,325,000. And we have SB 2513065 for the Bureau of Procurement, renewal and increase, Amendment 2 to SCON 002293. Adam, we might have to explain this one a little bit. I'm sorry, I think we have the two subject lines a little muddled there. Amendment 2, SCON 2293, tree maintenance services for $750,000. And these will be on non-routine, so they can be explained in a little bit more detail. And our final walk-on this morning is SB 2512441 for the Department of Public Works and unauthorized procurement compost crew for $11,508. We also have the following deferrals this morning. SB 2512707, fiscal year 26, renewal for employee crime insurance coverage, $22,269. This has been deferred until September 17th at the request of the comptroller. SB 2512718, fiscal year 26, renewal of fine arts insurance for $384,237. This has been deferred until 9/17 at the request of the comptroller. SB 2512720, fiscal 26, renewal of marine hull insurance, $69,873. This has been deferred until 9/17 at the request of the comptroller. SB 2512715, fiscal 26, renewal of aircraft hull and liability insurance, $461,667. This has been deferred until 9/17 at the request of the comptroller. SB 2511364, partial release of retainage, Metra Industries, Inc., $329,291.63. This has been deferred until 9/17 at the request of the comptroller. SB 2512854, Baltimore Development Corporation Subordination Agreement, Baltimore Community Lending, and BFH 1801 Oliver LLC. This has been deferred to 9/3 at the request of the comptroller. SB 2512324, Baltimore Development Corporation Office Lease Agreement, Strategic Wellness Advocates LLC, $33,577.75. This has been deferred to 9/3 at the request of the comptroller. SB 2512589, Baltimore Development Corporation Office Lease Agreement, All Pro Vending, Inc., doing business as All Staffed Up, $55,537.68. This has been deferred to 9/3 at the request of the comptroller. And SB 2512228, Department of Housing and Community Development, Land Disposition Agreement, 4M Swim Walther LLC, for $50,000. This has been deferred to 9/3 at the request of the comptroller. We have no withdrawals to note this morning. We do have a protest for SB 2512271, Department of Public Works awards Spinello Companies, WC 1349R, Madison Street area, 30-inch water main rehabilitation for $13,923,300. A protest has been received from Robert DeShiel on behalf of Northeast Remsco. The following items will appear on the non-routine agenda this morning, and they are SB 2512866, Bureau of Procurement Award Cooperative Contract Temporary Staffing Direct Hire and Other Employer Services, $50 million. SB 2512876, Bureau of Procurement Renewal and Increase Amendment 2 and 3 to SCON 002106 Tree Maintenance Services. SB 2513065, Bureau of Procurement Renewal and Increase Amendment 2, SCON 2293 Tree Maintenance Services, $750,000. SB 2512654, Department of Audits Biennial Performance Audit Follow-Up with Department of General Services for fiscal years ending June 30, 2024 and June 30, 2023. SB 2512835, Law Department Settlement Agreement and Release, Stephen Frank versus Albemarle Condominiums et al., Case 24C22001-841 for $120,000. SB 2512534 for the Department of Public Works Unauthorized Procurement POI Installation Group LLC for $6,200. SB 2512441 DPW Unauthorized Procurement Compost Crew, $11,508. SB 2512271 Department of Public Works Awards Spinello Companies, WC 1349R Madison Street, Area 30-inch water main rehabilitation for $13,923,300. Again, this protest was received on that item from Robert Dashiell on behalf of Northeast Remsco. This morning, we have the following abstentions to note. Deputy CAO Shemaya Kearney has the following abstentions: SB 2512256, renewal of grant agreements, U.S. Department of Housing and Community Development. SB 2512614, provider agreement, Johns Hopkins University. SB 2512487, provider agreement, JHU Bloomberg School of Public Health. SB 2512811, traffic mitigation agreement, JHU. SB 2512520, consultant agreement, Frontline Management Services, LLC. SB 2512646, First Amendment to Grant Agreement, Broadway East Community Development Corporation. And SB 2512643, consultant agreement, Healthy Neighborhoods. The Honorable President Zeke Cohen is abstaining on SB 2512228, DHCD Land Disposition Agreement, 4M Swim Walther LLC. The Honorable Comptroller Bill Henry is abstaining on all travel requests and travel reimbursements. Deputy City Solicitor Stephen Salisbury has no abstentions to note this morning. And the Acting Director of Public Works, Matthew Garbarg, is abstaining on SB 2512683, DPW retroactive travel request for Alan Robinson. Mr. President, that concludes our opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I ask for a motion to approve and adopt the opening statement as read by the clerk.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The opening statement has been adopted. And now direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from my office dated August 18, 2025, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been noted by the clerk. I will entertain a motion to approve all the items contained on the non-routine agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of approving these items say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The routine agenda items have been adopted. Seeing no further questions, we will now move to the non-routine agenda. The first item is SB 2512866, a cooperative contract with Robert Half International, Inc. Period of agreement is August 20, 2025 to 5/31/2029 for $50 million. On behalf of procurement, we have Chief Adam Manny. Chief Manny, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, Madam DCA, honorable board members. Adam Manny, your Chief Procurement Officer. Today before you, we are requesting the board's approval to award a contract to Robert Half for temporary services. It's a 5-year contract with a total spend authority of $50 million. As a little background, this is through the HGAC, the Houston Galveston group based out of Texas. We have used this group before writing that contract. The contract ended, the original contract ended earlier this year. Houston Galveston did put out a new solicitation. We knew that they were not going to finish their work prior to the expiration of the contract and prior for us to bring a new contract before the board. So we came to you earlier in this year with a bridge contract to get us through that period until they made their award and did their due diligence, which they did, then allowing us to do our work and our due diligence to bring this before you. Based upon previous spend, the city is averaging about $10 million burn rate on temporary services, which is the request of $50 million, $10 million per year. The last time we brought this before you with the bridge contract, there was questions from the board on where we're spending, why we're doing this. The city administrator, DCA Kearney, just yesterday brought this up. We have run some reports out of Workday. They're fairly lengthy, requiring some manual work. And we have been in contact with Robert Half, and they are preparing some reports for us so we can do some data analysis. And then the DCA and the CA can come back and we can give you some of the answers that you've looked at or that you've requested as we're moving forward. So today we're asking you to move this forward so we can continue with these services. And then once the administration has it and we've done all the data analysis, we can come back and answer the questions that you asked. Why are we doing this? Where are these being spent and so forth?
Okay. Questions from the board? Mr. Comptroller.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I can't speak for my colleagues, but for myself, when I was asking those questions several months ago, the hope was to have that information and review it and make those decisions before we committed to another $50 million going out the door to a private entity over the next 5 years. Why couldn't we get those reports pulled together and that analysis done before this was, and by the way, this was brought to us in a hurry. It was walked on yesterday, which means we did not have time to have this conversation ahead of time.
We had submitted it, sir, and we were a day late on getting it in, and then we were working with the clerk's office, and we appreciate that to bring this on. When we were trying to run the reports out of our system, we ended up with a report with approximately 300 lines where we would manually have to check every purchase order, every invoice, every receipt, which is time-consuming and getting it through. Robert Half, we had to re-ask them again for these reports. I will point out that Robert Half is they have a base here in Baltimore, bringing in Baltimoreans, and they have been a very good business partner to the city over the last several years as we're going through it. This is for the total, it's not spending $50 million, it's having the authority to spend up based upon $10 million a year. This board could say, sir, if you wanted to say is $10 million a year, when you hit that spend, come back to the board for that year's increased spend authority, so that way we're limiting it until we can get you that. Again, we are piggybacking on this contract. We do have the right, if this board decides a year from now or after we do, to remove ourselves from the contract. We can always work with them and get out of the contract and move forward and do something different as it's going along.
Let me also share that question with the law department. So this contract is one where we can be in it for 5 years, but we could also walk away next year if we have a robust public conversation when the data is available and determine that we would rather make a change to how our HR process works such that it's easier to hire people faster, such that we don't need to do $10 million worth of temps a year.
Yeah, well, first of all, not only I think you could terminate the agreement, you also just don't have to use it. There's no requirement that you have to spend this money. If we decided that we were able to meet all of our staffing needs without the
Because it's just authorization.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
authorization.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all my questions. Thank you. Oh, actually, no. When will we be able to have a conversation with the fully worked out data?
I hope to get that wrapped up by the end of this month, to have a conversation with the DCA and the CA and, of course, Director Moxton, and then get instructions as we move from there and share the data with the board after
So-
they've reviewed.
Turning to the DCA, so we could hopefully broaden that conversation to include people outside of the mayor's office by early September?
I don't know, early September, I think that is probably contingent upon how quickly we think we can get the data and get through the data analysis. We certainly commit to having the conversation and keeping you informed about how the data analysis is going, and then making sure that we schedule a meeting to talk about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to sort of reiterate some of the comptroller's underlying concerns here. I think it's a $50 million contract that we're walking onto the Board of Estimates. And I think for those of us that are invested in making sure when we do a contract of this size, it really does deserve scrutiny. We should have proper time to vet and think, and I appreciate the optionality within this contract, understanding that I still think to walk on a $50 million contract onto the Board of Estimates does not engender trust, at least from me, and I think I'm speaking for at least one other member of this board. With that being said, what mechanisms will be in place to evaluate vendor performance across multiple agencies for this contract? And will there be citywide benchmarks or standards to ensure we're receiving quality and consistent staffing from the contract?
When the contract is utilized, each department reach out to Robert Half, telling them the need of the temporary employee that they need, the staffing that they need. Robert Half provides resumes of each of the employees that they're willing to put forward. Each individual department then vets those resumes and vets that employee or that staff member to bring them on as a temporary staff member. If the staff member's not working out, it's a simple phone call to Robert Half saying, this is not working out, we need somebody else, and that person is removed, and they bring up more resumes and move it forward. Is there a global mechanism to review this contract? Not at this time. We do have in BOP access for when things don't go work, where agencies can reach out to us and come to us and say, we're having a problem with a vendor, we need you to intervene and we need your help, and then we work forward and we work with it. I have not had any complaints from about Robert Half or about this contract or the staffing so far, and I don't expect any.
Given the city's stated commitment to procurement reform, which has been invoked a lot up on this board, which is about improving competition, access, accountability. We've talked about best value versus lowest bid. How does this cooperative staffing contract align with those goals? Specifically, how does relying on a national cooperative vendor, and I heard you say they have a local offshoot, support or conflict with our efforts to build a fairer and more transparent local procurement system?
When we are looking at items that need to be procured from the departments, we base it on a certain factors. Is it the right quantity, right quality, right time, right vendor, right what we need to do? There are certain items that, when done on a national scale, get economies of scale. Temporary staffing, office supplies, traditionally, we get better value, and we get to work with local people also, as we said, this is a company that is headquartered in Baltimore. We can do our own RFP for this. It would probably result in higher costs and a little extra time. Instead of working with this, it will take additional time, probably about a year, to go through everything, because we have to work with every city department, figure out every possible need, work with them, and then start getting prices to move forward, or we just ask for a blanket off of their catalog. This work has been done for us through HGAC. There are several other staffing companies we could go through with cooperatives, but in parallel, when you do the math and you look at the time spent on resources and everything, on a contract of this sort, it is best practice to use those nationals. If this board wants us to put out our own, happy to do it, sir. It'll just take us some time to put together the scope of work, the specifications, get it out on the street, get a selection committee made up of people from without the organization, and move it forward. The same as we were doing with the unarmed security guards that we had spoken about a couple of times ago. We just finished that RFQ. We're reviewing it and getting ready to put that out on the street. We are happy to get it done. It's the board's discretion, sir.
And the non-competitive nature, the cooperative nature,
Well, the cooperative did do competition. It wasn't a select source from the cooperative. HGAC held a national competition where firms from all over the country replied to them, were scored and done based on a best value before this was awarded. So they did the cooperative nature for us to use it. They did a competitive procurement for this.
walk that back for 1 second. Who did?
HGAC, the Houston Galveston Area Council, which is a government entity, a cooperative based out of Texas, they issued a formal solicitation, formal competition nationwide for these services. After it was done and the review was done and all of the work was done, same as we would do, Robert Half was awarded the contract through HGAC. There is a piggyback clause, a rider clause, which allows us to use that contract. They did the competitive part for us. We are just taking advantage of that so we don't have to do it on our own.
2 questions there. Can you please submit that to the board?
Sure.
Secondly, are we not trying to get to a place where, like, I appreciate someone in Houston doing that work, but we need to do it ourselves? Like Baltimore, we're trying to move toward, again, procurement reform, which to me speaks to the need for more of our own vetting and competition. So I appreciate someone else's appraisal, but is this not a thing that we need to build?
We can, sir. It's a business decision that's made that, like I mentioned earlier, there are items that, based upon national cooperatives, where the city benefits from that economies of scale. We can do it for ourselves. We can probably do it on behalf of a national cooperative if we wanted to and possibly earn a little income out of it. But traditionally, with these items where there's a huge catalog, the economies of scale from a national cooperative outweigh what we can do locally. If this board prefers us to do it ourselves, we are more than happy to do it. And we can go through the entire process and be transparent about it and come back to you with an award for either one or multiple vendors to supply this. We don't just use Robert Half. We have used other services and other companies as needed in specialty things. These are what we're doing. If that's the direction the board wishes us to do, it's a business decision, sir. And we made the decision based upon best practices. If the board wants us to do it ourselves, we are happy to do so, sir.
My sense as chair of the board and as one of the 5 members is that this board is very interested in the conversation of procurement reform, or at least I'll speak for myself. And I do think moving in the direction of developing our own internal capacity to effectively vet large $50 million contracts like this one is, yes, very important. I think where I want to end it is there's been a lot of conversation, and look, I think everybody is clear about challenges with staffing in Baltimore and in many cities across the country, and that this is not a abnormal approach to do temporary, to administer these types of contracts. But there's also been conversation on this board about really trying to develop our own internal capacity, develop our own workforce. How are our young people in Baltimore or our adults being shepherded into work within our own government? And so understanding that we're not there yet and that it's going to take a lot of work to get there, again, how do you think of, how does the administration, how do you think about, again, walking on a $50 million contract that to me really is in the other direction, is about contracting?
Well, sir, the timing was off, and I take full responsibility for that. We missed it by a day, and that's why we've requested to move this forward. Temporary staffing is needed by the city, as you just mentioned. We are working under a contract now. If this board determined that they didn't want to approve this contract, we would have to go to an emergency route to keep the staff in place, to keep the business of the city continuing going. We have worked diligently to do what this board.
I'm sorry. Did you say?
Mr.
if the
Comptroller.
board, I'm sorry, did you say if the board did not approve this contract?
Correct. If the board has the right to say no to this contract,
Right, okay, but the reason I'm making that clarification is I was told that if we had deferred this for 2 weeks so that we could have time to have this conversation, you were still going to do an emergency
We would still
procurement.
have- we would have
Which
to do
tells
that.
me that even if you'd been a day earlier, you still needed it to be this board meeting, which says that's cutting it really close
we had.
for something that's an extensive
Yes,
amount of
and
commitment.
we were waiting on HGAC to finish their due diligence and award their contract, and then based upon timing, to get it before this board. Yes, sir, it is a very tight schedule that we were trying to hit with this. Again, most major public entities on items of this sort are looking for economies of scale. We have in BOP worked diligently, based upon this board's direction, to move ourselves to the best value off of the lowest bid. These are business decisions. I understand exactly what you're saying, Mr. President, and I agree with you. Those are policy decisions, and we are happy to enforce those policies and enact those policies. My job is to bring to you what I feel is the best business case for the city to move forward. This board then can make that decision if I am right or wrong on how it wants to move forward. For temporary staffing, nationwide, our best practices to do this is to bring this board after, so we can benefit from the economies of scale. We can benefit of having the work being done where we are not taking our internal resources to do this, which is time and energy. If the board prefers us, based upon what you said, and there are items you want us to include for a new temporary staffing contract, which could be temp to hire or a variety of different things, we are happy to do the board's bidding. But as part of what I'm doing is I'm bringing to you what I feel is the best way to move the city forward, to keep the city services going as we're using temporary staffing. As the deputy solicitor said, if we decide not, you award it, and then you tell me to put out my own, we just don't have to order any more services from it. We have the right to terminate the contract. We can move forward with the direction you want, sir. I just need to know what you'd like me to do, and I'm happy to do it as this board wants us to go forward.
But if there was not an opportunity for a deferral that would have provided more time here, I feel like.
Trying not to go the emergency route, which would have put it into, yes, it was a very tight timing. Should we have done the bridge contract for a longer period of time? Probably. Instead of doing it for the amount of time we did, we should probably add it on an extra month or two, which would have given this board that opportunity. That's on me. I thought we would have it going forward, and this is where we are. It's a lesson learned for procurement that if we're going to do those things, to make sure we build in extra time to give the board the opportunity to discuss this. I didn't realize that it was a choice that was made, and obviously I made the wrong choice with the timing of it.
Chief, I have enormous respect for you and for the work that your office does. I do not think today's action represents best practice. I think as we strive to be a more fiscally transparent entity, board, city, this is not what I hope we are striving for. That said, any other, Mr. Comptroller?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just, oh, okay. I'm fine with doing the everybody speaks once before anybody speaks twice.
Deputy City Administrator, you want to jump in?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Just a couple of questions for you. One, I want to first acknowledge the comment about HR processes, that we should not always assume that the use of temporary assistance is because we're trying to skirt HR processes or because it takes so long to hire. In some cases, it really is that we have a very temporary need that doesn't need a full-time FTE. And so there are some cases where that is why we would use temporary contracts. So I want to be sure that we're clear that it's not always a situation where we have agencies or individuals that are trying to skirt HR processes because we think they take too long. In addition to that, as we talk about procurement reform, one of the things that I want to mention is I don't think that procurement reform means that there will never be any situations where we never piggyback on contracts. I think that it does mean that we are going to have to do some due diligence, and we can decide when it's the appropriate time to do so. Completely understand concerns about the amount of the contract and the term of the contract, but would state that the chief has provided some flexibilities around this. And so while not ideal with the timing, there are some flexibilities that still protect us as a city. And the use of temporary staff does not preclude us from hiring young people or moving them into government positions. So that's another thing that I want to bring up as well. Chief, you talked about that potentially we could have maybe add another month or two on to the contract. But you also mentioned earlier in your remarks that there was a due diligence period that HGH was going through, and that we weren't sure. That due diligence was all of the vetting of all of those who submitted to the proposal, et cetera. Do you happen to know when that was completed? And I ask that because that, of course, would impact your decision-making around how much time you thought we needed for the bridge contract.
We originally had hoped that they would have finished that work in June, and they did not. They did not finish it until mid-July, which then had our opportunity to work with the solicitor's office, our partners in SMB&D, and everybody else to put together this contract to bring to this board at this time. It does take us a few weeks after they've done their work for us to do our due diligence and then prepare all the documentation and get on the board agenda to move forward.
I'll just ask one more.
Hang on. Deputy Solicitor?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Chief, can you just speak a little bit more to why today and why the emergency? I mean, I'm assuming there are a lot of active Robert Half employees that are working and supporting the city right now. So why is it that we would have to have some type of, either if we didn't approve it today, or we would have to go to an emergency just to basically maintain operations throughout the city that are currently being supported by this contract?
Sure. Thank you, sir, for the question. There's approximately 270 open purchase orders to Robert Half for staffing services across the city. Without the valid contract, with the contract, that bridge contract, without going to an emergency or without doing it, all of those services from those temporary staff members would have to wind down, because there's no contract vehicle to keep them anymore, and all of those services that they're providing would no longer be available to the city. It would take us more than 2 weeks to probably wind down, which is why we would do an emergency extension so that that work could be completed, or whatever they're doing, and then wind down and then figure out how staff is going to take it over and continue providing those services.
And do you have any sense across all these 270, I think you said, open contracts basically means staff members that are supporting the city? What agencies are these supporting? Health?
It's every
I know
agency
these-
across within the city. Every department within the city traditionally has a staffing help. It could be longer term, it could be short term. It could be that the administrative assistant went on long-term medical, so they brought somebody in to be a temporary staff. It could be an engineer, it could be an accountant or an actuary that we need to help with the books or help with reporting that we're doing. It's across the board. It's finance, it's accounts payable, it's health, it's pretty much everybody is utilizing this contract, which is why the value of it and the burn rate on the contract is so high.
I would just say, Mr. Chair, I totally get the point about, ideally, we don't want to be walking something like this on, and you want to have more time. I also get what led to the reasons for the delay that were probably somewhat outside of the power of the procurement officer, but I think I would intend to support this given the operational need. And the law department itself has had its own very positive experiences working with Robert Half. And I would just add, sometimes we have had numerous experiences where we bring somebody on in a temporary capacity that then can stay on as a full-time employee. So it's, it's not exclusively sort of this temp work, but thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll yield back my time.
Thank you, Deputy Solicitor. Mr. Comptroller.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, Mr. Deputy City Solicitor, that's a great point. We have done that in our office also, and I agree with the DCA. Sometimes temps are intentional. Sometimes you only intend to have somebody for a short time. Until we get a chance to review the data, though, we don't have a grasp of how often those anecdotal instances actually occur and how big of an issue they are when we're making this policy decision. I wanted to go back and take issue with a point you made earlier in the general presentation about how in justifying a cooperative contract in the first place, if you were putting this contract out into the field yourself as Baltimore City, you would have to go around, survey agencies for exactly what their needs are. And the advantage of this cooperative contract is Houston Galveston already did that work for us. And I'm going to take issue with that point when I say Houston Galveston did that work for them. They checked with their agencies to see what they needed. And both Houston and Galveston are cities in counties, not like Baltimore. Baltimore City has different administrative and operational challenges than literally any other large city in America except St. Louis, and some people call Reno a big city. I don't. The fact of the matter is that we can't be certain that any cooperative contract is automatically going to be a good fit for us. So I wanted, when you say they already did that work for us, that's not quite the same as we did that work for us, and we know we got an answer that matches Baltimore's needs to 3 significant digits.
Yes, sir, I understand the point that you're making, yes. But what my point was is that HGAC did do it was done as a cooperative method, as a competitive method on a nationwide basis based upon the data. Are you absolutely correct that maybe it doesn't include something that we need specialized? Absolutely, sir. And again, as I said, we are happy to do that. If that's the direction this board wants us to take, we're happy to do it, sir. Again, it was a business decision that was made based upon best practices in procurement, and my experience that we're bringing forward to it. If this is not the direction the board wants us to go in and you prefer, we're happy to do that, sir. But a business decision was made to bring this before the board. Again, it's not spending that amount, it's the authority to spend it based upon our previous history with this. But we're happy to do what the board likes. Like I said, we're going into an area which is not my forte, which is more policy. And I don't set policy, I enforce policy, I enact policy, and I'm happy to do whichever direction this board wants us to go in.
I appreciate that, which is why technically I'm going to shift a little bit and aim my next remarks towards the actual centers of policy here in the city. It's, no offense. None taken. Okay. I can't do. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. So when you when you make the very valid point that this is a business decision and that needs to be made by the Board of Estimates, that's when I'll go to my third point, which is the part of this which is almost as disturbing as the fact that we're walking on a contract of this size and importance, is I'm not going to call it a threat because I don't think it was intended in a threatening fashion, but the reality that if we had used the one sort of regulatory power that the council president or the comptroller have in the board's agenda, if we had used that power to defer this item for a meeting so that there would be time to have a broader conversation, try to have time to review what data you already have. If we had done that, you would have simply pulled this item and done an emergency contract through the emergency procurement process, which effectively bypasses the council president and myself and allows an agency to simply commit it.
Well, sir, I'd like, if we had to do that, I just like, if you don't mind, sir, we would not have done an emergency for a year. We would not have done that. It's the same thing as if this council decides today that you don't want to make that decision, we would do that emergency extension to allow the council to do this. As I've been very forthcoming with this board in previous things, I understand the direction the board wants to do. The goal is not to go around the board.
That's right.
The goal would be to extend that contract to allow the board to do what it wants. We would do an extension for 2 months, so that way the board could do what it needs to, and then if the board decided it didn't want to go and it wanted to go into another direction, we could do that. I have never, sir, come before you and gone around this board and said, well, I'm going to do an emergency for a year because I don't want to go through the grilling I'm getting.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm not going to disagree with you as an individual, but, I'm trying to remember the appropriate cliche, the reality is that has happened to this board with other agencies. 2 years ago this fall, 2 years ago in 2 weeks, DPW did a 5-year, $50 million emergency procurement and then didn't bother to notify the board about it for several months. So I'm not saying you would have done that, but I'm saying that has happened. Gun shy, that was the cliche that I was trying to, I'm not saying that, I'm not accusing you, but I am telling you this board has experienced that behavior from the administration. And so given that, we have to worry that if doing it now, accepting the walk-on and having as much of the conversation as we can have now is what we're forced to do because we can't take the chance that we will forego the opportunity to have the public conversation
Yes, sir, and
at all.
I understand. And again, I apologize to the board with the speediness of this, but the goal was not to go around the board. The goal was to make sure that we had these contracts in place. And we do depend, as the deputy solicitor said, on some other entities to do their work and internally to do our due diligence. Again, that's on me. It was my choice to say, let's bring this forward to the board instead of having to do an emergency and move forward.
Whose choice was it to not engage the council president and our office in a ahead-of-time discussion about this, knowing that you were going to do it?
That was probably, again, my mistake, sir. It wasn't intentionally to avoid. We processed it through the system as we did with any contract that we want to bring before the board. There was no intention to go around anybody or to do it.
But I mean, no, I mean, like, you could have just reached out for a meeting a month ago, knowing that this was coming down
You're
the pike.
absolutely correct, sir, and it's a lesson learned
Okay.
as we move forward. But we handled it like we would any contract, going through the system, going through the procedures.
For $50 million.
Sir, yes, $50 million.
Yeah.
It's, the
I
value
know.
doesn't change the process as we're moving forward with it. It could be $1, it could be $100 million. We're going to go through the process. Yes, this was rushed based upon a decision I made to try to avoid having to go through an emergency route. We missed the cutoff by a day. I fully did it, and we had very great help from our business partners internally to bring this to you. Is it a mistake? Is it right or wrong? I understand what the board's saying. At the end of the day, it's on me. I made the business decision. I made the call so that we could bring this before the board so that we didn't have an interruption in services and to move forward with it. And again, as this board moves forward and you make your decisions, we will adapt to continue. I understand your trepidation about going there with the emergencies, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get this forward
Done the right way.
and be done. But I understand what you're saying, sir. I'm also trying to make sure that we don't have an interruption in services, that the city can move forward, and that we're doing it. And again, I will follow any direction the board wants to give, and we'll make it happen. Like I said, if you want our own contract, I am happy to do that, sir. I just need some time to do a survey, like you said, get the right people in the room, including members of your offices, so we can get the correct scope of work and specifications and get something out on the street that will meet the needs that this board and the direction this board wants to do. It's just a matter of time at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. Mr. DPW Director?
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for you, Chief.
Mr. Interim, nominee, how do I say it? Nominee to be the director of DPW?
Acting,
Acting.
It's a lot simpler, isn't it?
a lot simpler.
Mr.
Matt, just call me Matt.
Mr. Acting, go ahead.
Question just for my own edification. The cooperative, this is not defining the number of positions. It's more the rate at which positions would be paid. Correct. So when you're talking about a national search, you're talking about rates that would be competitive nationally that we could pay people like administrative assistants, others like that, rather than the specific number of positions or something?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Deputy Administrator.
I'll just lastly just say that I hear the conversation, but I also want to be clear that there's been a lot of conversation about the use of emergency procurements. And I think what you have seen from the administration is really a effort to not go that route, for us to bring these items before the board for a conversation. Certainly for other contracts, we've engaged with you all when you've asked for briefings or you have questions. We've done that. We missed the mark in this case, and I think that we, willingly acknowledge that. But I want to make sure that we're very clear that we are very committed to making sure that items that are of importance to the city and for the management and operations of our city make it to the board for conversation and for decision. This is one, again, where we missed the mark. And I'm very clear that this is not the way that any of us would have wanted it to be, but this is a situation that we find ourselves in. I want to be clear that we also want to make sure that we do not have a disruption of employment for any other individuals. When I think about what is happening nationally, with the loss of jobs, et cetera, we certainly don't want to add to that number to the event and the instance that we can. Again, not the way that we want to go about it, but we want to make sure that we are not disrupting employment for the 270 or so folks that we know are depending on us right now for employment opportunities. And so certainly moving forward, we will make sure that there is, especially for a contract of this value, that we will have those appropriate conversations in advance to allow you and your teams to ask questions, et cetera. But just noting that we have made very concerted effort, the administration, to make sure that we are limiting the use of emergency procurements and making sure that we have these dialogues before the board.
Mr. Comptroller.
No, I just want to say thank you. That is greatly appreciated. I do. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Abstain.
Abstain. The item is approved. Please note abstentions from the comptroller and council president. Next item is SB 2512876, a request from procurement for renewal and increase via Amendment 1 and Amendment 2 to a goods and services contract with L. Johnson Tree Services, LLC, and Forest Valley Tree and Turf, LLC. Period of agreement is 7/1/2025 to 6/30/2026. On behalf of the procurement, we have Chief Manny again. Sir.
Designated punching bag today. It's all right, I got it.
Chief Manny.
Thank you, Mr.
Floor is
Council
yours.
President, Mr. Comptroller, Madam DCA, honorable board members. First, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Clerk Amato and her staff for helping us get these two items onto the board. This is a renewal of tree service maintenance and debris and related services and pruning. This contract we had been working to get the extension before the board. We were waiting on documentation from our business partners so that internally, SMB&D, others could do their review to make sure that they are doing what they said they're supposed to be doing and moving forward. Originally, this was a single solicitation with 3 different awards, an A group, a B group, and a C group. We awarded 2 separate contracts. As we were working through all of this, we were submitting it as one large item, which really created chaos when you reviewed it. It wasn't clean. And so we worked to split out the 2 different vendors, because there are 2 separate contracts, into 2 separate board items, which you see before you. The reason that we are requesting, and we requested this to go as a walk-on, is based upon the current weather patterns that we have with Hurricane Erin offshore and the start of hurricane season. We didn't want to delay this, that if something does happen,
where we would then have to go back into the emergency for an emergency procurement for these services. So we're asking again for the extension of the year and the increase to both vendors as we move forward. And like I said, as we separated them out, so it would be cleaner for the board and cleaner for the public as they're reviewing everything to see it. But they are just tied together. It was originally done as one large solicitation, ending up with 2 awards.
Chief, I am grateful that this contract is moving forward. This is one of those issues, and Comptroller and I both know as former district council people, that is really frustrating to folks when there is a tree that clearly is in need of either pruning or being removed, and folks do the 3-1-1s, it sits there, it sits there, it sits there, frustration builds, they pull in their council person, the council person pulls in the administration, and just on and on and on and on. Have dealt with several of these recently with individual council members, and it is just incredibly frustrating, just as a government should work kind of issue. Like when folks see it, they report it, they're right, and having it take 8 months, a year to ultimately get it down just causes enormous amounts of frustration and just, signals to folks that systems are not clicking or working. And so given the city's history of neglected tree maintenance and the nearly $8 million contract value to date, how will this renewal improve response times and proactively address maintenance backlogs across neighborhoods, specifically neighborhoods that have historically been underserved?
I can't answer that question,
I
sir.
believe we have the right doctor to provide us a diagnosis. Director Moore.
Good morning, members of the board, Council President Cohen, Comptroller Henry, DC Kearney, Solicitor, and Acting Director Garbart. I am Director Reginald Moore for Baltimore City Rec and Parks. What this contract does, it continues to help us work on our backlog, but also deals with urgents and also in the case of storms. One of the things I want to share with you is, while we understand and sharing that frustration, a 6 to 12 month time frame to remove a tree is not a local standard, it is a national standard. So we have done work, and we've spoke to our colleagues over in DC, who has 3 times the size staff that we have, and their average time once a tree is reported is 12 months. So it is not outside the national standard that it takes a while. We have an opportunity that we will continue to work on our backlog, and I think you all should agree, or hopefully would agree, that you have seen a significant decrease in our backlog over these last 3 years. We have been intentional. Administration has been grateful enough for us to give us additional funding. We're excited about some additional funding that administration provided us this year that will help us significantly remove that backlog. But I do want to be clear that while our goal is to remove the backlog, the standard is still on average a 6 to 12 month for removal of a tree. So we will continue to work on that, but I do want to just clarify that that is not outside the national norm of how long it takes us to remove a tree. So
Understood, but as you and I have discussed on not one but several occasions, we have several that exceed that time bound, the 6 to 12 months. And additionally, I think where it gets tricky is, in some cases, you do start to see risk to human safety, right? If the tree is going to fall either on the vehicle or, God forbid, on the person, it requires an emergency, expedited timeline. And while I do appreciate Rec and Park being extremely diligent and working hard to try to cut the backlog, I think you would also agree that this comes up every single budget season. You hear from council members, you hear from folks that are frustrated about continued delays and not getting their trees removed. And so just, and this is perhaps for Mr. Manny again, but just the I don't know, this seems like a perpetual issue, and I do appreciate the administration putting more resources against it. That is greatly appreciated. I guess the nature of why this is coming to the board in this kind of way versus it does feel like I would think we can be planful about this. It's not like this issue just popped up. If you could maybe provide a little bit deeper of an explanation for why this. Okay, thank you.
As we started this renewal process earlier in the year, prior to the contract being ending, as we went forward with it, as part of our process, we do ask our business partners to provide certain documentation to ensure that they're living up to their contract, their small minority business spend, their compliance with wage and labor, and a variety of, and then these departments do their analysis to make sure, and we've been before this board before, to make sure that they are doing what we've asked them to do. It just took more time than anticipated with our business partners to get that documentation and then to allow our internal business partners to do their processes to get through it. We could have, and we had this discussion the other day, waited and brought this on to, as part of the standard routine agenda going forward. We felt, based upon the current weather patterns and, of course, the beginning of hurricane season and Hurricane Erin, that it would be best for us to bring this contract to the renewal before the board now as a walk-on, so that, God forbid, if Hurricane Erin hangs a left and comes ashore towards us, we have the contract in place and we can move forward. But there was that discussion as we were going forward with it, and we felt just because of the weather and what's happening currently, it would be best to bring this now instead of waiting to bring it through on a regular agenda item. We didn't want to wait on that nature.
Deputy Administrator.
I was just going to add that obviously the trade-off would be that if we didn't have a contract, then the conversation that we would be hearing from both of you is, why didn't we have a contract? And so you've heard that some of the delays were due to some of the due diligence that we needed to do to make sure that we are continuing to partner with people who are adhering to our standards. That time was more than what we anticipated, and why we find ourselves in this situation. So I want to be clear that this was not a lack of planning, more than it was just a delay in getting the proper information for us to be able to evaluate and make sure that our partners are living up to the expectations and to the contractual requirements.
No, I hear and appreciate that. Again, having been here, not in this job, but in this building for 8.5-ish, a little more than that, years. I'll just say this, every single budget season that I've been in local government, and I believe probably this gentleman as well, it's the same conversation. And you heard it this year, you've heard it, right? I mean, it's every single year. And so I don't dispute anything that you just said. I don't, this is not, to me, lack of administration being aware of it, or not having heard the constituents or council members or other folks who've constantly brought this. And I understand your point about if we didn't do this contract, then we'd be complaining that we didn't do this contract. And again, I think this is one of those things where I just wonder if, given that it does feel so cyclical, there can be a way to avoid any kind of last minute. And I also, to just register, did hear the piece about concerns about potential hurricanes, knowing that climate patterns are shifting, and that we may be in a situation not too long from now where we would have like a catastrophic amount of trees that we would need to remove or get picked up. So understanding all of that. Yes, Deputy City Administrator, Director Moore, I believe you're back up.
Director Moore, you didn't come here to get a homework assignment, but I'm going to give you one anyway. I think what would be helpful is for this board and for our council president to be able to see what the estimate would be for us to attack the backlog completely. Like, what is that dollar amount? and then let's have a conversation about that with real numbers, right? Because obviously, even though we're adding additional capacity or additional dollars to help with the backlog, we're chipping away at it, but we're not moving as quickly as some may like. So I'd like to just get the dollar amount and what that would look like, how many contractors we would need, et cetera, so we can have an informed conversation about what that looks like, right? Because this is not necessarily the forum to debate how much money that we need for that. That is a part of our budget process for sure, but we should make sure that our partners understand what that looks like.
Not a problem at all. I can definitely, our forestry team actually have a lot of that information already. But what I would say is that it has been the budget hearings, it has been the current administration that each year has given us additional money to tackle this backlog. And I just want to go on record and say it again, it's not that Baltimore City Rec and Park is not trying to tackle the backlog, it's the reality. There's a resource issue, there's a funding issue, and I know in budget hearings we have said that as well. Each year, and that's why we have continuously gotten additional dollars, which we have continued to see that backlog go down. So definitely we'll do that, get that homework assignment. I'll get that over to you, and then we can determine when we want to have a conversation and really talk about stumps, trees, and pruning, everything in between.
No, I think that would be great. I appreciate that suggestion, and I think it would be good, Director, as well, to, whether it's you or someone else, perhaps in groups, we could provide that for council members as well. Again, they end up often being the very, very front line of people's agenda about this issue, and having been recently looped and having worked with the city administrator on a really difficult tree situation in West Baltimore with one of my colleagues, I think folks would just appreciate that real talk and level set around where we're at, what the dollars look like, and how do we continue to aggressively move toward cutting down the backlog. Thank you. Other questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The item is approved. The next item is SB 2513065, a request from procurement for the renewal of a goods and services contract for L. Johnson Tree Service LLC. Period of agreement is 7/1/2025 to 6/30/2026 for $750,000. On behalf of procurement, we have Chief Manny. Chief Manny, the floor is yours again.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, this is the second contract that was done through that solicitation that we are asking for the improve. It's the Group C portion of the Group 3 portion of it, and it's the same circumstances as the previous item.
Much appreciated. Questions? I'm just going to ask one more. Sorry, Director, to make you run around. This is for Director Moore. Could you just talk, and briefly, 45 seconds or less, about prioritization, sort of the emergency nature of a stump removal versus thinking about equity and where neighborhoods that may be underserved and where folks have historically received less value in city services. Just talk for 45 minutes to this board about, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's not do 45
minutes. A long time.
Seconds.
I need a PowerPoint to do 45 minutes. No,
I do not think anyone in this room is looking for a 40, except for me. I would actually be very interested in that, but not for now. I'm sorry, 45 seconds or less. Talk about kind of the theory of how we address the backlog and how you think about who gets first, who gets second, and so on.
So in 45 seconds, when we get a service request for a tree, first thing we do is we send our urban foresters out. Our urban foresters assess the tree to determine if the tree needs to be pruned, if the tree needs to be removed, and the conditions of the tree. From that, they produce a work order. That work order is then generated, and it adds to our list, and then our contractors are assigned that tree work. If it's an urgent where where it's in severe condition, then it's expedited and moved up the list. One of the things I will share to you, and as part of this homework assignment, and it's easy work because we already done the work, is we have maps that shows us the continued a heat map of the entire city that shows current trees, SRs, what SRs we've closed in the last 2 to 3 years, how that looks on a bigger map, and then also the areas that we need to have greater concern, where the bigger backlog is. So I can provide that as well as part of that homework assignment. But after the urgency is not determined, the next step is then we start on the backlog. We look for the oldest trees back, and we move forward. We try to remove the oldest backlog requests and then move forward from each year. So we're roughly, we're on a 18-month backlog right now, but that is something that we are concentrating. I think once we get this assignment and we sit down with everyone, I think it'll be a clear picture how we can get to removing the backlog as long as we have the resources to support it.
Thank you. That was 126 seconds, but I forgive you.
Apologize.
45 minutes.
Better than 45 minutes, indeed. I appreciate that. Just last thing from me on this. I know there's been challenges within forestry. I think there's been personnel changes, leadership changes. Is the forestry division solid and stable right now?
I will say yes, sir. While we have had 3 arborists, one retired, had been here for 10 plus years. Another one came in from out of state, and he got an opportunity with the state that he couldn't pass down. But we have Matt Rescott, who has been with the agency for 3 years before he was promoted. Matt is committed to the city. He is a resident of Baltimore, and he has established his foundation of his team. So I feel confident that going forward, our forestry team has a solid ground.
Appreciate that. Looking forward to seeing some real stability within that division, and I know my colleagues will as well.
Yes.
Any additional questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. This item is approved.
Thank you.
The next item on the non-routine agenda is SB 2512654 from DOA to note the biennial performance follow-up audit of the Department of General Services for the fiscal years ending June 30th, 2024 and June 30th, 2023. On behalf of DOA, we have Department of Audits, we have City Auditor Josh Pash. Mr. Pash, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, DCA, honorable board members. My name is Josh Pash, and I am here to present the biennial performance audit, follow-up audit for the Department of General Services. Next slide. So I'll go over our audit objectives and scope, the results, our audit methodology, some background information, and the implementation status of the prior findings. Next slide. Our objective and scope. So we are doing a follow-up of the implementation status of DGS's management action plans for the prior recommendations. Our scope was November of 2024 to May of 2025. This scope was chosen based on the implementation timeframe of DGS so we could cover what they had already implemented. And our prior objective was to evaluate the effectiveness of monitoring controls over fuel inventory and distribution, and that report was issued in November of 23. Our results of the 5 prior audit recommendations, 1 recommendation was implemented, 2 were partially implemented, and 2 are not implemented. And we have here a picture of a city fuel site, and here we have a DGS attendant performing refueling troubleshooting. So if the city employee who's getting fuel has any issues, there are attendants on site to assist them. Next slide. Our audit methodology. So we evaluated supporting documentation such as policies and procedures, the checklist for independent site visits, and fuel reports. And we also performed audit procedures to ascertain whether the reported implementation status was adequately supported. We observed the SharePoint and MS Teams channel, which I'll get into later, to determine if it contains reports, historical reports, the standard operating procedures, and an incidents folder. Next slide. We judgmentally selected fleet coordinators, inquired of them how they are using the SharePoint. That is based on, do the agencies aware of what the policy is? Number 5, reviewed the list of fleet coordinators, determined whether they have access to SharePoint and MS Teams channel, which is the same. And then we validated the city recovered $31,000 from the Mount Pleasant and Pine Ridge Golf Course, which I will get into more details later. Okay, some background information. So DGS operates 4 online fuel stations, 3 sites with underground tanks, and 1 site with an above-ground tank. And then there are other agencies that oversee the fuel sites. So those are noted below: public schools, parks, water and wastewater, solid waste, and then there's mobile trucks. DGS is responsible for all acquisition and dispensing of fuels. However, these sites are maintained by those agencies. The mobile trucks are with the fire department, transportation, DPW solid waste at Quarantine Road landfill, and that has 2 tanks, and then DPW water and wastewater. Some more background information. Next slide. Okay, so how does the fueling process work with fuel cards? So first I'll go over online fueling stations. So first, the vehicle is verified and authorized. So there's 2 methods. Either there's a CAN receiver, which is a device attached to the vehicle, and that automatically transfers information such as the type of vehicle, the mileage, and other information. And if the vehicle does not have a CAN receiver, which about 80% of city vehicles do, then the driver has a white card, and that is tied to the vehicle, which identifies the vehicle. Once the vehicle is validated in the EJ Ward system, the person is then validated, and they have a fuel card with their individual PIN. And then once the vehicle and the person are validated as authorized, they can begin fueling. So the EJ Ward system validates vehicles and employees, like we said, tracks deliveries, dispensing, and inventory, and records detailed fuel transactions. Also want to note that the authorization of fuel cards, so for police department and fire department, they do their internal risk management and send the request to DGS, and then the other agencies send their information to risk management, who goes and reviews and approves, and then sends that request to DGS to issue a fuel card. Next slide. Okay, manual fueling stations. So there's a fuel attendant at each station, and the nozzles are locked. So the fuel attendant has to unlock the nozzle. The fuel attendant is the one who records the vehicle information, asset number, and they also record the employee information, so that is captured before the fuel is dispensed. And then the fuel attendant submits those fuel sheets to the fuel systems so that those fuel uses can be charged to the respective agency. Next slide. Okay, WEX cards. So WEX cards are for use at commercial sites. And for example, if there is a police vehicle that is in another jurisdiction, they would be issued a WEX card so that they wouldn't have to come back to refuel at our site, depending on what their work. And then emergency WEX cards are the same thing, but temporary. So for WEX cards, the agency fleet coordinator will submit a request to DGS. DGS will create the account and distribute to the fleet coordinators, and then the fleet coordinator will maintain and manage that card and give it to the employee. And then when the employee uses that at commercial fueling stations, I'll be using that WEX card, which is similar to a P card. And then for emergency WEX cards, the agencies complete a form submitted to DGS. There is a DGS custodian who holds those WEX cards, and that custodian also validates the transactions. Once they're made on the WEX card, they collect the receipts from the employee with the emergency WEX card and do a review and monitor that. Next slide. Okay, just to give a trend over from fiscal year 21 through 25, these are the fuel costs that were incurred by the agencies. Next slide. And this is the fuel usage in gallons. Next slide. And then if we break out WEX cards, here is the dollar amount that was spent over that period by those agencies. And the next slide is the amount of fuel purchased on the WEX card. So that would be at non-DGS, non-city fueling locations. Next slide. Okay, getting into our implementation status of the prior findings. So finding one, the finding in the prior year was the city does not have systematic monitoring controls to reduce the risk of misappropriation. So we found that DGS delegates the monitoring responsibility to the agencies. However, DGS did not give the necessary tools for those agencies to monitor the fuel usage and identify anomalies. For example, in the EJ Ward system, there are built-in tools, controls, trackers that could be used. And I will note in the next stage that, next page, that DGS, working with the agencies, decided to use the existing fuel usage report instead of going into the EJ Ward system for various reasons. And then we also noted that there's no formally established responsibility for agency fleet coordinators, and there's no uniform guidance. So there's not that overall rule, and that there's not that overall enforcement. So getting to the auditor assessment, we identified this as partially implemented. DGS did develop standard operating procedures to create that guidance, and they implemented during the course of the audit. The original one was in March of 25, and subsequently they updated it in May of 2025. So that part was implemented. And then we also noted that they created a SharePoint folder and a Teams folder, which was a distribution method so that each of the agency fleet coordinators had access to the policy. However, when we looked into it and talked to the fleet coordinators, we found that key user agencies are not using the standard operating procedures. And for example, DOT said that they rely on DGS to tell them of any fuel-related issues. Next slide. DPW said that they're aware of the SharePoint folder, and however, they're not frequently discussing fuel issues with DGS. And then Department of Housing and Community Development stated that they saw and are aware of the SOP, and they were, it was notified during a fleet coordinator meeting where that was informed to them, and that they are reviewing baseline fuel usage of their own agency assets. So we did note that DGS provided a training to the fleet coordinators. However, it did not address the fuel usage monitoring and anomaly detection, and also only one training was occurred in December of 2024. Like I mentioned before, DGS and user agencies had opted not to use the EJ Ward system controls, but to stay with the fuel usage report that they were using prior. An additional recommendation, because DGS created the policy but doesn't have enforcement powers over the other agencies, was that the city administrator work with DGS to require and enforce user agencies to follow standard operating procedures. And there's a picture of the EJ Ward fuel control terminal, which is the digital control system used to manage and monitor fuel usage. Finding 2. Second finding. Okay, DGS established standard operating procedures for daily and monthly reconciliations of fuel inventory. This is separate from the policies and procedures mentioned in finding 1. However, reconciliations were not being consistently performed at all fueling sites, and that was manual and online above ground sites. The reconciliation is comparing the usage to the records where it was recorded and making sure that everything is appropriately and captured. We also noted that DGS does not perform periodic site visits to independently verify fuel inventory and validate whether the SOPs for daily and monthly reconciliations are implemented and operating as designed, as that would be a DGS control and monitoring over those fuel sites. We had identified that this was not implemented. We did note that DGS did provide that initial training. However, that training gave a holistic view of maintaining operations, including inventory management. However, it did not specifically address these daily or monthly fuel reconciliations. In September of 24, DGS developed the fuel site visit checklist, as was the management action plan from the prior audit. However, there was a designated employee, and that employee did not perform the inspections between September of 24 and January of 25, and that employee is no longer with the city as of January of 2025. So even though DGS had completed and put together those checklists, they were not implemented. Next slide. Finding 3. Okay. The finding prior year was DGS did not maintain documentation to support authorization of fuel and WEX cards. Basically, evidence of the WEX cards that were issued were appropriate and authorized. And then second, we noticed that they did not deactivate employee PINs, basically their password, immediately after employees are separated from their positions. And then we also noted that there was not an independent employee in DGS that validated the emergency WEX card transactions, and I will come back to that in a little while. We marked that as partially implemented. So we did see that DGS implemented a WEX card activities report and that they circulated that to agencies, and that included employee names, asset number, gallons, et cetera. So giving those tools to the agencies, which was one of the prior year action plans. We found that DGS is working with DHR and BSIT to integrate Workday and EJ Ward, looking at the possibilities of that, which would streamline the ability when employees are separated. Then when those are separated in Workday, that would automatically flow over to the EJ Ward system. However, that is in discussions, hasn't been implemented. And they're still working on that. In the meantime, we asked about a compensating control, which we distributing a list of users to the agencies and having them confirm, and DGS was not doing that. So based on a working process with DHR and BSIT and not having that compensating control, overall we marked it as partially implemented. Next slide. So number 3 is the same as we discussed above, and number 4 was to put together policies that guided the above, and that was not applicable because number 2 and 3 above were not implemented. The last part of finding 3 was the independent review process for emergency WEX cards. So basically what this is there is a custodian that holds the WEX cards, the emergency WEX cards, and there was no independent reviewer to make sure that transactions are not occurring on those WEX cards that were not issued, basically in that stock. So we noted that DGS developed an independent review process for WEX cards, however, it was not implemented. And we see that the same person is responsible for issuance, custody, and transaction reviews of those WEX cards, and so that same risk remains. Next slide, finding 4. Okay, some of the manual fuel sites did not have cameras, which would be a deterrent, and the ability to investigate suspicious activities. We marked this as not implemented. We did note that cameras were rolled out at Biddle and Front Street. However, the cameras were not deployed at Montebello, Liberty Dam, and Patterson. Next slide. Finding 5. From 2017 to 2023, DGS was paying for fuel at certain municipal golf courses that were no longer under the purview of the city. This was implemented. We found that DGS went back and collected and recovered those overpaid funds from the golf courses, and we also noted that they stopped paying for the fuel. And then we also noted that they are working with Portfolio Management and Property Services to identify transfers of property so that if there is a site that they are working with fuel, that they would be abreast of any changes in that ownership and the status of the fueling station, so this did not happen again. I would like to thank DGS for all their effort and all their assistance in this project, and thank the audit team. Without both partnerships, we would not have been able to complete the audit, and I appreciate their efforts, and I will take any questions.
Thank you. Since the previous audit, what was the immediate corrective action that DGS took?
So all of the actions took months to implement, and I don't have the exact dates of the implementation. Like I said, we started our scope in as for November 24, because that's when the implementation status began.
Got it. All right. Looking forward to hearing from DGS. Thank you, Mr. Pash. I see Mr. Comptroller Henry.
Just really quick, I'm wondering if this was just something that I've forgotten from the original, but there was a rather precipitous drop in fuel usage by the police department. Did they mention anything about operations that would have explained that?
No, we did not contact the police department of their fuel usage and, reasons why that would have gone up or gone down.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions from the board, on behalf of DGS, we have Mr. Burkay. Mr. Attila, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Council President, Mr. Comptroller, Madam DCA, Interim Director Garmark, and Deputy Solicitor. First, I want to thank the entire Partners in Crime, the audit team. I've been working with them since 2014. We always say just like be on the audit, not on the IG, and they're really been grateful and working with us. So I would like to say one thing, that I understand the nature of the implementation being a binary source, but when we present our findings or the follow-up, you will see that we have made great strides and improvements in every aspect. Maybe not at 100% on everything that could be tagged as fully implemented, but I think we moved from not implemented to partial implemented. Correct me if I'm wrong, that this report was point in time, a couple months back, January, if it's not.
That is correct, and I made an effort to note that there has been a lot of progress made, but we did the holistic view looking at the implementation status as a whole.
Absolutely. So just we're on the same page, but now that we're in August, we're proud to be able to show you the process that we have made so far on every aspect of this one. For DGS's presentation, I have here our, first of all, fuel audit POC, and then now our acting Chief of Fleet, Shanae Williams. She's going to run the presentation through, but I'll be in the back seat if you have any questions. With that, Shanae, the floor is yours.
So good morning, Mr. Council President, Madam DCA, Mr. Comptroller, and other distinguished members of the board. I am Shanae Williams, Acting Chief of Fleet Management Division for the Department of General Services. So for our overview, we have a slide presentation as well. Oh, sure. Under the name is Shanae Williams under DGS. Mm-hmm. Who is it? Nate. Uploaded it.
Okay. So it's the presentation. It's the other presentation, or is it this one? I think it's that. Okay. So you just need to share the screen.
You can see a moose.
No, it's not a moose. That's it. That's
There it
the
is.
letters, actually. So thank you. So again, to begin the presentation, so our overall purpose is the implementation review, and we're going to focus on corrective action plans for the 5 findings. So next slide. So again, I won't go through each line on the summary page, but as we get into the details for each slide. So for finding 1, next slide. Lack of monitoring controls to reduce risk of misappropriation. So in summary, development and implementation of citywide processes for monitoring fuel usage and identifying anomalies across all agencies. So the corrective action that was taken, a citywide fuel SOP was established. DGS developed and implemented a citywide standard operating procedure for fuel management, approved by our Deputy Mayor of Operations to standardize controls and responsibilities across all agencies. We have a monthly fuel anomaly reporting. DGS will monitor fuel data for anomalies and distribute a monthly report to each agency, enabling them to investigate and take appropriate corrective actions. Now, we will distribute this monthly, but it may not be in a case where every month it's an issue or a fuel anomaly. Routine engagement with agencies. Monthly meetings with agency fleet coordinators and leadership to address risks, including potential theft. And again, we want to make this monthly because we want to also observe the effectiveness of the SOP and establish roles and responsibilities with the agencies. Quarterly fleet coordinator meetings to review fuel operations and reinforce accountability. An annual 6-hour fleet coordinator conference, which we started one December 2024 to provide training, policy updates, and promote collaboration. And the first one was actually 8 hours. Enhanced communication tools. So DGS created a dedicated fleet coordinator team, chat, and SharePoint site to facilitate in real-time communication with the fleet coordinators and the agencies. We share documents and provide live updates to fuel-related issues. And again, that started in March of 2025. So this is, next slide, please. This is this just shows a snippet of the SOP that has been created for all agencies across the city. It gives them an idea, just to let them know what some anomalies look like. And again, we can use an example of excessive fueling. If we notice a vehicle was obtaining more fuel than usual, we'll call that out and look into it, and have the agencies research that. And with that call out, next slide, please. We have a monthly fuel anomaly report. So the call out, again, will list what the anomaly is, and again, we have other reporting pulled from EJ Ward that substantiates that finding. It could be a vehicle anomaly, next slide, please, or it could be based on personnel. We could notice it's an issue with personnel overfueling, and we have reporting that lists by personnel as well for the call out. Next slide, thank you. So finding number 2, fuel site visits. So in summary, enforce, validate compliance with SOP related to fuel inventory tracking and reconciliation of all fueling sites. So as mentioned, there was a brief vacancy where we did not have a fuel system specialist, but as of June 2025, a fuel system specialist, it was filled. And since then, he has started, he's been to the fuel sites. He's also completed the July and August 2025 recommended fuel site visits and completed the forms as well. In addition to that, we have a fuel technician position that's currently posted and will be filled, and that will complete our entire team, and they'll be pretty much boots on the ground. So we'll have them going to the different fuel sites, just making sure we're compliant and up to date, and the fuel attendants are aware of what needs to be done at the sites. So staff training sessions have also been completed. Fuel systems training sessions were held October 24, initially, and then March 18th of 2025 to enforce standard operating procedures and improve agency-wide knowledge of fuel management practices. So, and again, since we've hired the new fuel system specialist, July 2025 was additional training, and it was on site that was completed at the fuel sites. Next slide, please. Finding number 3, authorization of fuel and WEX cards. So in summary, this was to enhance fuel card controls by maintaining authorization records, promptly deactivating cards when employees leave, and enforcing stricter emergency card usage policies. The corrective action that was taken, automated WEX card management. So we developed and implemented a new automated system for applying for, activating, and deactivating WEX fuel cards. The system improves accuracy, reduces manual errors, and ensures timely updates. And this is a non-paper, all via the app system that we have. And the fuel system team, we all have access to it, so it's not just one person managing it. Update fuel cards at city fuel sites. So all users in the EJ Ward systems are now updated, and only active users can fuel at the city fuel sites. Timely deactivation of separated employees. So the fleet fuel systems teams will receive a routine weekly update about separated employees citywide. So upon notification, the DGS team will deactivate the fuel card use of these employees as soon as notification is received. So this is based on a weekly basis. And again, next slide, please. This is an example of what the WEX card app looks like. And again, the agencies receive this link when they want to request it, and then they go right into it. And this link is already posted in the fleet coordinator. So when a WEX card is needed, they just go to this app and apply for it, and it's a step-by-step application. Next slide, please. So cameras at manual fuel sites. So in summary, this was to ensure operable surveillance systems are installed and functioning at all fuel sites. The corrective action that was taken, funding is secured, so DGS will cover the full cost of fuel site camera installations, ensuring no additional burden on agency budgets. So initially, when we started the process of looking for cameras and just trying to get vendors as well, we spoke with the agencies. And the issue we kept coming across time and time again, they didn't have a budget for specifically having fuel cameras at the fuel sites. So in order to resolve this and to, again, not prolong the process even further, DGS will cover the funding for the cameras at the fuel sites. Progress to date, Biddle Street and French Street site camera installations have been installed. And as of now, all sites have been surveyed, and we're just pretty much ready to go with the installations. Agency access and monitoring. So DGS will monitor all installed cameras and provide access to agencies for real-time viewing and incident review. So this support for anomaly tracking as well. Surveillance footage will support the investigation of monthly anomalies and help substantiate potential misuse of or discrepancies reported by the agency. So this goes back to the first finding. So again, if we have any issues, we can circle back with camera footage, again, to assist the agencies in investigating any potential anomalies. So finding number 5, so improve monitoring of fuel invoices for fuel sites. So in summary, verify that all fuel transactions are legitimate and tied directly to city operations, the corrective action that was taken. So initially, DGS was successful in recouping $31,878, exceeding the original identified amount of $20,911 in fuel costs from 2 golf courses. And again, this was due to additional investigation into this finding, so we got a little excited and just dug a little further and were able to recoup. Fuel site verification. So the fuel systems team collaborated with DGS Real Estate Division to confirm that all fuel sites currently being serviced are active and authorized city properties. Ongoing record management improvements. So with DGS Real Estate, they're developing a formal system to maintain accurate records for city-owned buildings and properties, and committee oversight. So DGS actively participates in the real estate committee, which oversees all real estate transactions, which, and through this process, all sites have been verified for ownership and accuracy. So DGS ensures alignment with active property records, and additionally, we are active, and it's actually a meeting tomorrow, which we will be attending. So next slide, and that concludes this presentation.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Mr. Comptroller.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. That was an absolutely wonderful presentation. You get extra points for addressing all of the pre-done questions. And that I did have one, just noticing you did a little snapshot or snippet of the SOP. I noticed that there is a effective date and a revision date line on there. Just out of curiosity, is it your intention to constantly update that with whatever the latest revision is, or will there be some way to log changes over time? And the only reason I ask that is if, like when we audit, sometimes we're looking at when things, things happen in the past. We would just want to know if, were they following the rules then, even if the rules have changed since then?
Yes.
Director.
Great question. Director Attila, DGS. Continuous improvement is the name of the game. Facts change, opinions change with it. The fact that SOP moves on may put an agency and an action may be incompliant today, but we will note and code and always tag the revisions by the violation so that we will not go back and say that you're not fully in compliant for the duration of it. We're going to get provided feedback through forced iterations of our fleet stat that we call the fleet stat. We meet with every major agency on fleet issues. We have our fuel team conversations and anomaly reports that we're gonna have to get the user feedback on that to improve the SOP. And if we do change it, we will code it and reshare it.
And you'll keep the constant, you'll keep the back copies of it essentially?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
And I want to also do a slight brag on the system that we created in-house with the tools that the BCIT has given us with the Power Automate to be able to create the electronic trail rather than the paper trail for the VEX card creation and cancellation. So there's a testament to the analysts. They're always thinking about the technology and trying to create efficiencies in the system. And as you see that pack full of improvements, and this is again from all DGS, thanks to the audit team for giving us the path and then shrinking the challenge for us to move forward to make us better. So we always appreciate it. We have, as I said, I've been working with them since 2014 for a little hiatus in between, but we always appreciate their help and support and guidance. And this is the product of that collaboration. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Garbark.
Director or your team, quick question. I saw on one of the slides that Bureau of Solid Waste used WEX cards, but water and wastewater didn't. Can you explain when a WEX card is used and when it's not used, or what examples it would be?
Well, a WEX card is like a retail card, so it's like your credit card. So if you're not fueling at Baltimore City fuel sites, you can go to a retail like a Amco, I can't even name one.
Sunoco.
Like a
Sunoco.
Sunoco, or yes, and fuel at the site, and use that card to swipe
Okay.
For your city vehicle.
Okay. All right.
I can,
So not a heavy equipment.
You don't want a trash truck pulling up in a snow.
no, it's like.
That's the question, yeah. I saw
For
solid waste. Okay, I can talk to you more offline on that. All right, yeah.
Interim Director Garbark, we could provide you the VEX card users of the solid waste, and we think that it would be the administrative vehicles rather than the operational vehicles.
Yeah, if you could send that to me, I'd love to see
Absolutely.
something.
Thank you, Mr. Acting. You've set some milestones, dates for standard operating procedures, distribution, and audits through fiscal year '27. How will you hold user agencies accountable to actually comply with your standard operating procedures, and what enforcement mechanisms are going to be put in place if they don't already exist? And I ask this question out of curiosity about not just when we have one agency, but when it interacts with several other agencies, and there can be inconsistencies in utilization and how folks implement policies. So how are you going to enforce your SOPs?
So again, originally we came up with an SOP, and the effectiveness was not, it wasn't really working out as it was mentioned. So we, the deputy mayor of operations, we came up with, we updated our SOP. And again, he's going to help us enforce that across all agencies. And again, enforcing it, DGS is going to find the anomalies and send them directly to the agencies, not just the fleet coordinators of the agencies, but also the agency leadership, to hold them, to make sure that they are actually investigating some of these anomalies and these issues.
Let me add something.
Sure.
So we have the firepower and the coverage of the city administrator's office all the way down to deputy mayor of operations, Mr. Zaid. So we're not going to jump the gun and go to the city administrator's office. We have an escalation policy. It started with the re-education of the SOP, the importance of the SOP. And unfortunately, if you don't play nice, then you will hear from somebody else. That's something that, as you see the deputy city administrator is pointing to herself. This is something that we do not ever have to do it. But we also did realize that the ineffectiveness of just sharing the SOP and the training with our outreaches being short is not the most effective way. But the ability to be able to pull that trigger, we're hoping that we will be taking a little bit more seriously when we report these things out.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Other questions? Okay. Seeing no further questions, I would note this item. All those, no, I don't even need a vote. All right, this item is noted. Thank you to the DGS team, and thank you to Mr. Pash and audits for working closely together. The next item is SB 2512835, a settlement agreement and release for $120 million on behalf of law. Whoa. Oh, I'm sorry, $120,000.
I would never.
They put a.
What, did you see? He almost tackled you.
They put an extra period in here.
Come on, everybody. Bring your eyebrows down.
I didn't want to come up here and ask for that.
I apologize. I'm going to do that whole thing over just to correct the record. The next item is SB 2512835, a settlement agreement and release for $120,000 $1,000. On behalf of law, we have Mr. Matthew Bradford. Mr. Bradford, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Matthew Bradford, Chief of Staff of the Law Department. Council President, Mr. Comptroller, Madam DCA, members of the board. The Law Department requests approval of a settlement of the claims of Stephen Frank. The disputed facts are as follows. Mr. Frank was injured in August 2021 after he tripped and fell on an elevated sidewalk on the 800 block of East Lombard Street. The sidewalk was elevated approximately 2 inches and allegedly caused by tree roots over the course of 2 years. Mr. Frank suffered serious injuries to his head, back, and spine. He had 2 surgeries and required some use of a wheelchair. Given the nature of Mr. Frank's injuries and the risk of an adverse verdict, the Law Department recommends approval of a settlement in the amount of $120,000. And I will note that the sidewalk has since been repaired. And I will take any questions from the board.
Absolutely. Given that we just had a conversation about tree removal, this feels timely. How are we using incidents like this to inform our long-term planning and investment in tree maintenance? And is there coordination between risk management, Rec and Park, and DOT to prioritize hazard mitigation? Somewhat similar to the question I was asking Director Moore earlier, just trying to understand how do we, right, we're a city where there's a lot of infrastructure challenges. We're going to see, unfortunate things like this happen. We want to prevent it from happening. How do we think about that?
Yes, and it's all of the above. When we do have a lawsuit or a major claim related to these types of incidents, we do work with, partners in the litigation to talk about some of the issues we saw. We immediately have an investigation of claims after it happens to make sure that we are investigating and making recommendations. But yes, when we do see incidents and have litigation that arises out of those incidents, we do make sure to contact agency partners with what law sees and certain trends with regard to the claims that we receive over the years. And I don't know if the Deputy City Administrator has anything to add to that. I'm sorry, Deputy City Solicitor.
Yeah, I did actually just want to add one thing, Mr. Council President, and this isn't exactly related to the tree removal.
Sure.
But actually, as part of our settlement agreement from last year involving the Americans with Disabilities Act and making improvements to the pedestrian rights of way, one of the things, in addition to added investment into sidewalks and curb ramps that we're doing, is we've been partnering, DOT has been leading and working with all the agencies. One of the requirements is to basically have like a vegetation removal and clearance process. So it's not just about, repairing curb ramps and sidewalks. It's also about making sure that we're clearing obstructions. And so whether it's caused by tree roots or overgrown trees or other shrubbery that's in the right of way. So that's a new process that we're just getting underway. It's a huge challenge, obviously, and is going to require a lot of collaboration and time and attention from the different agencies, but it is just one additional and very important part of the process of making our rights of way safe and passable.
Understood. Appreciate that work to address the settlement from the lawsuit. Comptroller? Nope. All right. All right. Seeing no further questions from the board, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. This item is approved.
Thank you.
The next item is SB 2512534, a request from the Department of Public Works for the purchase and installation of furniture for new hires. On behalf of DPW, we have
Steve Strickland.
Oh, Mr. Strickland. Hello.
Council President.
Sir, the floor is yours, Mr.
Thank
Strickland.
you very much. DCA, Council President, Mr. Comptroller, other members of the board, Madam Clerk. I'm here today to speak for DPW in regards to the purchase and installation of said furniture. I'll give you some background. Our safety and training office moved into 4 South Frederick. Some furniture was purchased. An employee that we had working the proposal did not realize that installation was not included on the purchase. The furniture was then delivered and installed. And then once she found that out, we went through the process of trying to figure out how to get payment done. So here we are today to ask for approval to make that payment.
Understood. Questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none. Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The item is approved.
Thank you.
You bet. The next item is SB 2512441, a request to approve an unauthorized procurement with the compost crew. On behalf of the Department of Public Works, we have
Deputy Director.
Deputy Director, Mr. Allen. Floor is yours.
Good morning, Honorable Committee. Appreciate the time to speak before you. This is regarding an authorized purchase procurement for a compost crew. The payment request is for the compost collection services at our residential recycling centers. It is the final payment for our vendor that has serviced the locations from 2022 until June 30th, 2025. The contract was established in 2022 to carry us through July 31st, 2025. But while the department did budget for the service, we were not able to add these funds to the contract via the purchase order because of the funds exceeded the initial select source procurement threshold. So for this one, I do have our Chief of Diversion right behind me, Ms. Sophia Hossein, who's going to talk a little bit more about that, as well as answer any questions that you may have regarding our zero waste initiatives. So Chief Hossein.
Thank you. Hi, Sophia Hossein, Zero Waste Manager. I believe my colleague Megan Ressler is on.
The microphone a little bit more towards.
Yes.
Sorry
about that.
The normal height like that.
So Megan Ressler should be online on WebEx, and she's able to share the presentation. Thank you.
Hey, there we go.
Great, thank you. So again, my name is Sophia Hossein. I'm the Zero Waste Manager for the Department of Public Works, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about our composting programs this morning. Next slide, please. An estimated 40% of the residential trash stream is wasted food, which produces methane, a potent greenhouse gas, and a contributor to global climate change when it decomposes in landfills. A transition towards sustainable food waste management requires cutting down unnecessary food waste, and so DPW provides food scrap drop-off services at all of its residential recycling centers, where the food scraps are collected by a local hauler and taken to a compost facility where it's then processed to become compost. The payment approval requested today is for compost collection services at our residential recycling centers. It's the final payment for our vendor that serviced the locations from 2022 until June 30th, 2025. The contract was established in 2022 to carry us through 2025, and while we did budget for the service, we weren't able to add funds to the contract through the established PO because the addition of funds would exceed the select source procurement threshold. Next slide, please. Thank you. In 2024, the Bureau of Solid Waste and the Office of Waste Diversion conducted an, we also host compost workshops. In 2024, we held 10 with 74 attendees, and each participant left with a composting guide and a compost or food scrap collection bin. For 2025, we're aiming for an additional 10 workshops with 3 already on the schedule. All workshops to date have been grant funded. As we look towards the future of organics recycling, we'd like to design a system that's built in stages, guided by data, outreach, and behavior change strategies. So in 2024, we conducted an in-depth analysis on the operational requirements and costs for separating out yard waste collection from trash collection. Separating out yard waste collection and diverting it to composting would be the first step in a phased approach to organics diversion. Preliminary funds to staff the program were provided in FY26 with additional funding needed in FY27. Later phases of program expansion would include an opt-in food scrap diversion curbside pilot and expanding organics recycling to schools and city agencies. Next slide, please. DPW's Less Waste, Better Baltimore master plan also recommends constructing aerated static composting facilities to facilitate large-scale diversion for wasted food. DPW is in the process of developing this infrastructure at its Bowleys Lane facility. We are working with a design and engineering firm to complete site plans and conduct community engagement with finalized designs expected by the end of 2025. Development is funded through a combination of federal grants, state grants, and capital improvement funds. believe that's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Comptroller Henry.
Have you had any conversations with the school system, not just about composting in city schools in terms of collection, but in terms of being part of the curriculum? It strikes me that composting is something where it's hard enough getting the idea across to adults that have not ever had any connection with doing it before. Would there be value to at least trying to teach the next generation while they're still receptive to the idea of how do I throw stuff away?
Yeah, absolutely. I think youth are often change makers in their household, and so we do work with the, I believe it's some colleagues on the food and nutrition team at the school system, and we have applied for collective grants with them. We also are, I believe they received an EPA grant, or the World Wildlife Fund received an EPA grant to work with the Baltimore City school system on recycling and composting education, and so we do sit on the committee that advises the grant expenditure on behalf of the World Wildlife Fund. So we are working with the school system. I think one of the challenges is that each school does things a little bit differently. And so it really requires champions in each school to really incorporate that curriculum into their classrooms or into their school-wide practices. But we do our best to make sure that we have educational materials and technical expertise available for them.
Do you have resources in your shop to be connecting individually with those champions or recruiting champions in each school?
I do have one staff person who is responsible for going to schools and doing presentations and working directly with educators to bring information to their classrooms, but that's just one person on my staff.
And they would have to go to a school every day in order to hit all the schools each year?
Yeah, maybe more.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Mr. Garbart.
We also have liaisons, community liaisons, who we do give this information to. We do have a number of them who go around and do go to schools to talk with them. Chief Hussain, can you talk, I think you mentioned it earlier, how critical composting is to reducing and diverting our waste. Isn't it something like 80% of our waste stream gets compostable?
I think about 40% is compostable.
All right, double that, but.
But about 80% is divertible. How about that?
Divertible.
Yes,
That's
there we
what
go.
I meant.
So between recycling and composting. And so, we have an established single stream recycling system already in the city, and the next biggest opportunity for residential diversion is going to be food waste. That's the next biggest chunk of the waste stream. And so if we're looking to reach our zero waste goals, really, approaching food waste diversion at the household level in an accessible way is going to be, the way that we really get that food out of landfills and towards regenerative soil and food movements.
Could you real quickly describe the plan we have for our aerated static pile facility?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Bowleys Lane.
Can you say what an aerated static pile?
Can you state what an aerated static pile facility is?
Yes. So aerated static pile refers to the style of composting. And so this would be a stationary pile where air is being forced through it. And air is one of the critical ingredients for composting. Composting relies on microbes to break down the material, and so they need water, food, and air just like all of us. So by providing air flow through the pile, we expedite the composting process so it becomes more efficient. So whereas it could take 3 months for a non-aerated windrow to compost, it could take 8 weeks for a aerated pile to successfully compost. So aerated static piles refer to the type of composting that we'll be doing. It's a version of hot composting, and we are planning right now the facility that we are designing will be able to process an estimated 12,000 to 15,000 tons per year of material. For reference, the residential compostable stream is about 100,000 tons per year. So this is, a pilot. It's a small scale facility that we're hoping to expand in the future with additional funding. We are planning the design with that future expansion in mind so that the facility can, when we have those funds available, we can easily make more space to do more composting. And there will also be a solar component. So we did receive an EPA grant, and the solar power would power the aerated system. So it would provide that forced air to expedite the composting process.
Mr. President, if I may real quick, also, this is a key example of how the federal government, when it is partnering with local governments, can really change things. We would not be able to afford this facility without the $4 million grant from the EPA.
Yeah.
I think it highlights how much Baltimore City benefited from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. And these investments are absolutely critical, not just for our roads, our bridges, everything, but even into our infrastructure such as solid waste. So I want to thank Chief Hussein for moving the grant quickly so that we haven't actually got the funds, because I don't know if this thing would have survived otherwise.
That's a great point. Mr. Comptroller.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of my coworkers suggested that as we market increased composting, we should make sure, I think the expression was, we yell from the rooftops that more composting means less leaky trash trucks. That nobody likes it when they see the trash truck dripping stuff as it comes down their street. If you don't want the trash truck to be dripping stuff, don't put drippy stuff in your trash. Put the drippy stuff in the compost. So, yeah.
Yeah, if I could just provide one comment on that. I mean, beyond just the drippy trash, separating out your food waste from your trash stream also has the ability to positively affect our rodent issues. So like when you pull it out into a separate bin and you process that separately, the rats or other vectors won't have a reason to come to the trash. So by removing their food source, we hope to see, positive change in that way as well.
Understood. Given the nature of this presentation, I would like to see the moose slide again. just kidding. Sorry. All right. Anyone else hearing and seeing no further questions? I would entertain a motion from the board to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. This item is approved. Thank you, and thank you for your work. The next and final item is SB 2512271, a request to approve an award with Spinello Companies for WC 1349R Madison Street, Area 30 inch water, Madison Street, Area 30 inch water main rehabilitation. On behalf of the Department of DPW, we have Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, the floor is yours, Deputy Director.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Thank you, honorable members of the board. My name is Alan Robinson. I am the Deputy Director for the Department of Public Works. Before us today, we are requesting the board to approve an award.
Real quick, are you also acting, or do we?
No, I'm
You're
permanent.
He doesn't.
Fantastic.
I'm actually permanent.
Got
So I
it.
interviewed, accepted, and was offered the position. So signed off a letter and all that good stuff. So
Congratulations.
I am here.
Appreciate it.
So regarding this action, we are requesting that the board award Spinello Companies this Madison Street Area 30-inch water main rehabilitation project. Back in December of 2024, the Honorable Board did open 2 bids for the subject project, and the bids range from a low of $12.153 million to a high of $13.923 million. The low bid was rejected because the low bidder, Northeast Remsco, did not submit a responsive bid at the time. After review and further analysis, it has been determined that the second bidder, Spinello Companies, bid is responsive and provides the best value to the city. Now, to talk a little bit more in detail about what that looked like, I do have our Deputy Chief of OAC, Mr. Blake Suka, who's going to be right behind me to present, and then whoever else can have a say after that. But I want to have Blake come on up.
They're going to make their whole case.
Thank you. All right.
We got you. We'll do the whole back and forth. Mr. Suka?
Mr. Suka, that is correct.
Great.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, Honorable Board. Thank you, Deputy Director, for the introduction. My name is Blake Suka. I am the Deputy Chief of the Office of Engineering and Construction within the Department of Public Works. I do have a slide on my screen here. I think I'm sharing my screen if I navigate through. Is that okay? Very good.
It helps to present like full screen.
I think I am. I know it's not showing that way up there.
No worries, it's fine.
Let me try again. Is it okay if I just go through it like this?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. So as our Deputy Director mentioned, this is a construction project that we recently advertised for award. We received 2 bids. We've reviewed both of those bids, and we are recommending award to Spinello Contractors. The name of the project for us, the project number, is Water Contract 1349R. The name of the project is Madison Street Area 30-inch Water Main Rehabilitation. As I go through my slides, I'm going to explain the rationale that we used to make the determination that we believe Spinello is the appropriate contractor to make the award to. So very briefly, just to give you an overview of the project itself, this is a map showing the location. It is in the downtown area. A bulk of the work is located on East Madison Street, but some of the work does extend in the surrounding area as well. There's a total of 4,625 linear feet that will be rehabbed as part of this project. The bulk of that rehabilitation, specifically 70%, is required to be performed via a method called slip lining. I will define what slip lining is in just a moment, but I want to highlight another key aspect of this project as well. The specifications that we created for this project, the bid documents that we put out for the contractors, it does include a qualification component. The bidding contractors are required to provide a list of references, and those references are to substantiate that they performed this same type of work on previous projects. So what is slip lining? Slip lining at a very high level is whenever you take a new pipe that is slightly smaller in diameter than an existing pipe and you slip it into the existing pipe. This graphic on the screen here gives you a pictorial representation of what that can look like. To talk you through the graphic, this is an excavated pit. At the bottom of the pipe, at the bottom of the pit, you can see the existing pipe is exposed. There is a notch cut out of the top of the existing pipe, and the new pipe is on the top left side of the pit, and it is being pulled down into and through the existing pipe. Like I said, the new pipe is slightly smaller in diameter. It is made of a material that allows it to flex, which allows you to slip it through the existing pipe. So why did we select slip lining? The main reason is because slip lining is less disruptive to our communities. Slip lining only requires you to excavate specific pits along the length of the water main that is being rehabilitated, which is compared to the more traditional method where you excavate the entire length of the water main itself. With that reduction to the excavation that is necessary, that reduces the impact to the roadways, it reduces the impact to traffic, and ultimately reduces the impact to our communities in general. Along the same lines with that reasoning, the reduction in the excavation and the reduction in the roadway restoration, that results in a time and cost savings, which is reason number 2 why we selected slip lining. And reason number 3, quite simply, is because it's a proven technology. It's been performed before. We know that if it's performed appropriately, it will result in a successful rehabilitation project. And there's one other distinct explanation that I feel like I need to make, and that distinction is the difference between water main construction projects and sanitary sewer construction projects. Water mains are the network of pipes that provide clean drinking water to our customers. Sanitary sewers, on the other hand, are the network of pipes that carry wastewater away from our customers. 2 different types of pipe networks, both could be rehabilitated by slip lining. This particular project that we're talking about is a water main project. Some of the main differences, number 1 being pressure considerations. The vast majority of water mains are actually under pressure. The pressurized water inside the pipe creates internal forces on the pipe itself. That adds some complexities with the connections. The connections need to be that much more secure to ensure that the pipe is not leaking. Sanitary sewers, on the other hand, most oftentimes are gravity fed, which means the water flows freely downhill through the pipe, and that water is not under pressure. And the last difference that I have here, and arguably the most important difference, is the potential for contamination. Whenever we're working on water main projects, water mains provide clean drinking water to our residents. We need to ensure that these construction projects are performed in a manner that do not introduce bacteria and other contaminants into the water main system. There are various industry standards. Some of the main ones are the American Water Works Association, the National Science Foundation, we have the Safe Drinking Water Act, amongst others. These are all sets of standards and regulations that govern how water main projects need to be performed, and those requirements apply specifically to water mains. They do not apply to sanitary sewers. So what are the qualifications that we did in fact include in the specifications? This table on the screen summarizes what those qualifications are. I'll read through them very briefly. The number of related projects that the contractors had to perform in the past is multiple, anything greater than one. The total linear footage amongst all of those projects had to be 10,000 linear feet. The work had to be performed in the past 7 years. The pipe size related to those projects had to be 16 inches in diameter or greater. The utility type had to be potable water. That's the water main clean drinking water component that I just mentioned. The rehab type was required to be slip lining. The pipe material is high-density polyethylene, HDPE for short, and the location of those projects needed to be within the United States. I do have a footnote at the bottom of the slide here just to clarify that the original requirements that we had in the specs were 20,000 linear feet being performed over the past 5 years. We did, in fact, reduce those requirements slightly. The intent for that reduction was to expand the pool of potential bidders while also maintaining a level of comfort that we are going to ensure that the contractor that ultimately performs the work isn't experienced in doing so. So that was the requirements that were in our specifications. We advertised the project in November of 2024. We opened the bids in December of 2024. The chart at the bottom of this slide here gives you a summary of the prices that we received from the bidding contractors. Our engineer's estimate was $11.9 million. Northeast Remsco's cost was $12.1 million, and Spinello was $13.9 million. Now, as I've been saying, the price is only one component of this evaluation. The other component is the qualifications. So how the qualifications worked was that each contractor included a list of references that was intended to represent entities where they performed this exact same type of work for previously. So we received those references. We created a standard procedure in evaluating those references. Those standard procedures that we followed were we came up with 3 very simple questions that we asked each and every reference, and we made it a rule that we were going to attempt to contact each reference 3 times. Call them once. If they don't pick up, call them a second time, and then try again a third time. The 3 questions that we asked were quite simple. The first one was it a water main or sewer project? Question 2, what trenchless method was used? This is where we wanted to hear slip lining. And the last question was, how would you rate the bidder's quality of work? Now, Spinello provided a total of 3 references. Our initial attempts to make contact with those references, we were only able to contact 2 of the 3. For Northeast Remsco, they provided a total of 8 references. In our initial attempts in contacting those references, we were only able to contact 4. And of those 4 that we made contact with, they did in fact inform us that the work that Spinello performed for them did not meet our qualifications that we had in our specifications. So at that time, what we decided to do was to issue a letter to both contractors requesting updated contact information so that we would at least give ourselves the best possibility of reaching some of these unresponsive references. At the end of the day, we were able to contact all 3 of Spinello's references, and we were able to contact 7 of the 8 references from Northeast Remsco. This slide shows a summary of the information that we received from Northeast Remsco's references. Down the column down the left-hand side is the name of the reference itself. The center column will show you the description of work that the contractor included in their bid, and the far right column is a summary of the response that we received when we made contact with each reference. The first one is the reference that we were unable to make contact with. The second one you'll see says Sewer HDD project. HDD stands for horizontal directional drilling. It is a trenchless method of installing water main, but it is different than slip lining. As you look down the list of responses here, you'll notice that the majority of them are sewer projects and none of them are slip lining projects. Slip lining was the crucial requirement that we had in our list of qualifications in the specs. So just briefly, horizontal directional drilling graphic here on the screen. At the bottom is the slip lining graphic that I showed previously. Very high level explanation of what horizontal directional drilling is. It is a method that is typically used when installing a new pipe, and how it is performed is a contractor takes a mechanical drill mechanism that can navigate its way underground. It drills an arched path. The initial path is typically smaller in diameter than what the ultimate pipe size is going to be. So after the first pass is performed, the contractor conducts multiple reaming passes where they follow the same path back and forth using slightly larger equipment to increase the size of the hole or the tunnel until it reaches your desired size, and then the new pipe is pulled through that tunnel. Again, it is a trenchless installation method. It's typically used for new pipe, and it is different than slip lining. This is a summary of the responses that we received from Spinello's references. On the right-hand side summarizes the responses that we received. You'll notice that all three of them are water main projects, and they are slip lining projects. So based off of the information that we received from both references, we determined that Spinello is the only bidding contractor that sufficiently meets the qualifications that we included in our specs and bidding documents. Just to compare the two side by side, this is a representation of each of the criteria and how the bidders met that criteria. Y means yes, N means no. Spinello meets all of the criteria. Northeast Remsco failed to meet 2 of the criteria. So that brings us to Spinello's price. Spinello's price was obviously higher than our engineer's estimate. The first thing we did to evaluate their price was to take a look at the bid items themselves. Are they balanced? Are they unbalanced? Have they overstated any of the pricing for the specific bid items? Have they severely understated any of the pricing? It's normal procedure for us to evaluate the balance of the bids. In this scenario, when we took a look at all of the bid items, yes, the prices for some of the bid items were higher than what we would expect, but they were in fact balanced. We did not determine that any of their pricing was unbalanced. And then there were 2 other factors that we took into consideration when we were evaluating their bid. Number 1 is the criticality of these construction projects. All of the water main construction projects that we're performing is due to the aging infrastructure that we have. The further we push these projects down the line, the more susceptible we are to potential risk of a failure. And then the last factor is the fact that if we do rebid the project, we would be doing so roughly a year, if not more, later on down the road. So you have the concept of inflation. You put the project back out for advertisement. There is no guarantee that you will get an equal or better price than what we're currently facing right now. So that concludes my presentation with all of those factors that we consider. That is why we recommended award to Spinello.
Thank you, Mr. Suka. Questions from the board? All right. Mr. DeShiel, come on up.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. With me is Robert.
Please state your full name as well.
My name is Robert DeShiel. I was once as tall as this gentleman, but over the years, with me is Robert DePonte, who's a project manager for my client, Northeast Remsco, who submitted a bid price of roughly $1.8 million lower than the price offered by Spinello. And let me say first that notwithstanding the rather elaborate description of what happened here, this contract was advertised as an invitation for bids, not a request for proposals. In the invitation for bid modality, method of procurement, the decision is made on the basis of who offered the lowest price. Now, in Baltimore City does not have a pre-qualification category for slip lining of water mains. They only have a pre-qualification category for slip lining of sewer lines. Slip lining, whether it's water mains or sewer lines, is exactly the same process. Nor is there this, and both can be pressurized. Even though Baltimore City's sewer system is on a gravitational basis, as you know all too well from the 2005 consent decree that we're still operating under with EPA, the fact is there are many areas of the Baltimore sewer system that are operated under pressure because they have to be pressurized to move the sewage through. But the process of slip lining, which was correctly stated, is simply one where you slide a smaller diameter pipe inside a larger diameter pipe called a host and then fill the void with grout, is exactly the same. And the fact that they are the same is evidenced by the fact that the city only has one category for slip lining, and that's for sewer lines. So the only question here is, my client completed for Baltimore City, mind you, under sanitation contract 940, 8,000 feet of slip lining of sewer lines in Baltimore City. Now, interestingly, this project includes less than 4,000 linear feet of slip lining, period. As Mr. Suka said, about the majority, the total length of the project is only about 4,000 linear feet. He said the majority of which is to be repaired or rehabilitated through the process of slip lining, which means it can't be more than 4,000 feet. The amount to be slip lined can't be greater than the total length of the project. My client has performed twice that much. My client's references indicate it's completed over 400,000 linear feet of slip lining. So the question before you is, in the contract that's advertised as invitation for bids, would you as a taxpayer pay almost $2 million more to a contractor for no apparent reason? Not only did Northeast Remsco complete the 8,000, but they got an A+ rating from Baltimore City for doing it. So they did a great job doing it. There's no justification whatsoever so the determination that's been made is that my client is not a responsible contractor. Obviously, that's not true. They bonded it, they're pre-qualified by the city, and they're pre-qualified in the only category that the city has relating to slip lining. We urge you to, and Mr. DePonte will further give testimony if need be on my client's experiences, and they've done tremendous work for Baltimore City over the many, many years. We urge you not to spend $1.8 million of taxpayer money in a contract advertised as invitation for bid, which is supposed to be controlled by the lowest bidder, for nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none. Sorry. Mr. Comptroller, any questions for either TPW or Mr. DeShiel? No. All right. Seeing and hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. This item is approved. As there is no
Mr.
more.
President. The clerk is incredibly sorry to add even one more minute to the meeting today. I apologize, but I must ask the board to support removing an item from the routine agenda that should have been deferred, and we missed that request from the administration. That item number is SB 2512861, provider agreement with Fusion Partnerships on behalf of Phase 3 Training Corporation. The administration would like to defer this item until 9/3/25. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do we have to approve removing that item, or?
Technically, we approved it because it was sitting on the routine, and we should have pulled it out and deferred it in advance of that approval.
Understood. I will entertain a motion to approve deferring item, could you say the number one more time, Madam Clerk?
That item was SB 2512861.
Mr. Comptroller?
Very technically, and this is where I'm looking over at our lawyer, like, do we have to vote to reconsider the previous vote on that item? Because technically, we approved it.
What, yeah, why don't we just do it? It can't hurt. We can
Yeah.
vote. That will be noting that there was a correction to the earlier
There we
approved
go.
routine agenda,
Okay.
and that is now going to be deferred for 2 weeks and considered at the next BOE meeting. So pending, that's, I guess the motion before the board would be a motion to to correct the earlier vote and
Yeah.
defer the item, the SB number that the clerk just said, to be for consideration at the next BOE meeting.
I will entertain a motion to reconsider earlier vote and defer to a future meeting the item that the clerk mentioned.
Do we have the deferral date?
September 3rd.
September 3rd, yeah. So just clarifying, it's the September 3rd BOE meeting.
Yep.
So moved.
Is there a second?
There is, second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. This item has been approved.
Thank you.
Not a problem. As there is no more business before the board, we will now adjourn this meeting. The next regular meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 9 a.m. I thank everyone for participating and tuning in. Thank you.
Hi, TV25, we're ready to go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Estimates bid opening for August 20th, 2025. We have no addenda to share today, and we have 2 bids to open and 1 tiny correction from a previous opening. So up first, for the Department of Public Works, we have WC 1285R. This is for Caroline Street and vicinity water main replacements. Casey, I think these will have totals and bid bonds. And Tawanda, I don't have a column here for bid bond, so I'm just going to put it all the way out and you can clean up the floor.
Okay, so for WC 1285R, I have 1 original.
Thank you.
And 1 duplicate. I'm going to hand you the duplicate.
Thank you.
The first is from Civil Construction LLC.
Yep.
The total bid amount, I'm going to read to you from page 203, is $16,601,677.00.
That number was 16,601,677.00.
Why do you mark this page?
Siobhan did this one, I didn't do it as civil. It shouldn't have been on there.
Okay.
I have the name,
And then
the
the bid,
total,
yep.
and the bond.
And the
marked.
bid bond, yep, I can see
Which
the
makes
signed
sense.
bid bond is on page 221.
Yep. Okay, there is civil construction. And, oh, sorry, I forgot to read the total like I usually do. So that was Civil Construction LLC for $16,601,677.00.
Super. All right. The next one is from the that's not right.
Do you have a dupe for me?
Yeah, but the name isn't on the front, so give me a
Oh.
minute.
Sorry, I did not mean to rush you. I'm noting for TV25 that I don't see audio recording happening. Do you see that?
I don't see audio popping up,
I don't either.
but I trust Trim TV will come down and tell us if something is wrong, or come in on the God function.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, let me figure out who this bid is from. Oh, this bid is from Commercial Utilities. I have one original, and I have one duplicate. Can I hand you the duplicate?
Yes, please, thank you.
The total amount for this bid is $18,089,923.75. There is a bid bond here that is signed.
Okay, that number was 18,089,923.75.
Correct.
Are we recording? On the what? Do we have to repeat everything we've said?
Probably.
Speak.
Speaking, testing.
You can be heard.
Well, usually I see it too.
The subtitles aren't up, that's all.
Oh, okay.
That's all. Do you want them up?
Normally, that's how we know the
Okay.
vote, the thing is being recorded. So I've never seen it with them not up. Thank you. Just wanted to be sure. 'Cause-
they're definitely there. They're
Okay.
definitely heard.
Cool. Thanks for confirming.
Well, see if they're.
Testing.
Is this working? No.
As long as you're getting audio.
Yeah, we're getting
We're getting
we will-
audio because I
we'll
can see
stop
the
worrying about it.
screen lighting up.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So that was commercial utilities for $18,089,923.75. Yeah.
And that was Randy from Charm TV helping us.
Thank you, Charm TV, for helping us all the time.
This is how you know it's live.
Is this just a copy of the bond signature page?
Yeah.
You have the original, right? Okay, got it. There we go. So that is commercial utilities.
Okay, the next one for water contract 1285R is from Monumental Paving and Excavating. I'm gonna hand you the duplicate.
Thank you.
I have the original. Monumental Paving. And the total bid is also found on page 203, is $18,700,000.00.
Okay, that number was 18,700,000.00.
Correct?
And yes, we have a bid bond.
Correct, signed bid bond.
That bidder was Monumental Paving for $18,700,000 and no cents.
Cool. Okay. And the is this the last one, I think? Yeah.
Yes.
Different color. The last one for 1285R is from Spinello Company. So I'm gonna hand you the duplicate. The total bid amount is $20,883,300.00.
Okay, that number was 20,883,300.00.
Correct.
And I believe there is a bid bond. I have a copy.
And there is a bid
Yes.
bond.
Okay. That bidder was Spinello for $20,883,300.00. Thanks, Tawanda. And that was our final of 4 bidders for WC 1285R, Caroline Street and vicinity water main replacements.
Super. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I froze.
It's
That was
cold in here.
not- That was not, it is so cold in here. That was not a technical problem, that was actually me. Public Works, contract WC 1451, urgent need water infrastructure rehabilitation and improvement phase 2, FY '25. We are opening this bid today, and I believe we have 6 bidders for this one.
Yeah, so our first one is from Anchor Construction Corporation. I'll hand you the duplicate.
Thank you.
We have a bid bond.
Oh, hold on a sec, let me create a column for that. Okay. We have one original, one copy?
Yep.
Okay.
And the total bid is $25,434,640.
Okay. And I'm verifying with the copy, that's 25,434,640.
That is correct.
.00. That bidder was Anchor Construction Corporation for $25,434,640.00.
Okay. Our next bidder is Civil Construction LLC. I have one original and I have one duplicate. Handing you the duplicate. I have a bid bond, signed bid bond. And the total bid amount is $17,628,050.00.
Okay, that number was 17,628,050.00.
That's correct.
That bidder was Civil Construction LLC for $17,628,050.00.
The next bid for water contract 1451 is from Commercial Utilities. I'm going to give you the duplicate and I have an original.
Thank you. I see a bid bond.
Okay, good. I don't have a bid bond in the original.
There is an original bond in this one.
That's good.
It's
They probably
stamped.
just stuck it in the duplicate copy.
Possible, yes.
Okay. Oh dear. All right, the total bid amount is, sorry, this is lovely handwriting, that's a little bit not clear. $20,883,485.00.
I think I see $585.
Yes, I'm sorry. I can see 5 when I look numerically.
Yeah, I had to
when
read
when
the
I
words
read
to
the
be sure.
very nice handwriting, I can see 5 or 4. So
Okay.
I can reread it.
So
20 million.
Let me read it
Okay,
back to you.
thank
I have 20,883,585.00.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, that's the words I believe match
Yeah.
that. Okay. That bidder was Commercial Utilities for $20,883,585.00.
Cool. The next bidder for WC 1451 is Monumental Paving and Excavating Incorporated. I have one original and one duplicate. I'll hand you the dupe.
Thank you. It's very slim.
Okay. I have a signed bid bond. And the total bid is $21,350,000 and no cents.
That number was 21,350,000.00.
Yep.
So that bidder was Monumental Paving for $21,350,000 and 0 cents. Thanks, Tawanda. Up next.
I have one original, one duplicate. This is for R.E. Harrington, Plumbing and Heating Co. Incorporated. I'm gonna hand you the duplicate.
Thank you.
I have a signed bid bond. And the total bid is $14,120,400.
Okay. That number was 14,120,400.00.
Correct.
That bidder was R.E. Harrington Plumbing and Heating Company for $14,120,400 and 0 cents.
And that was all right,
Nice
we have
large
one more.
font.
Yes. I know, I did. And blue. All right, our last bidder for WC 1451, Urgent Need Water Infrastructure Rehabilitation and Improvements, Phase 2, FY25. Is didn't I already read a Spinello bid?
For the previous.
Sorry.
I think they're the last.
Okay.
On this list.
Cool. This is Spinello Companies. One original, one duplicate.
Thank you. I know you added a whole bunch of flair there. I wasn't sure what was happening.
I'm full of flair. We got a signed bid bond, and the total is $24,113,300 and 0 cents.
Okay, that number was 24,113,300.00.
Correct.
Okay. And I have a copy of the bond. You said you have?
Yep.
Okay, very good. That bidder was Spinello for $24,113,300 and 0 cents. Thanks, Tawanda. And that was our final of 6 bidders for WC 1451, Urgent Need Water Infrastructure Rehabilitation and Improvement Phase 2, FY25. And our final item for today is a correction to a bid that was opened on August 6th. That bid was RFQ 000728, and it is, we read the wrong name associated with the RFQ number, and that's what we're correcting today. So that RFQ was Storm Drain Inlet Heads and Galvanized Face Bar. That is replacing the name that was accidentally read, which was on-call repairs and improvements at various wastewater treatment. So again, that was RFQ 728, Storm Drain Inlet Heads with Galvanized Face Bar. And I will also remind folks that are following our bid openings that we did not receive any bids for RFQ 728 on August 6th. We are simply correcting the information that was read into the public record. And that is our last item of business for today's bid opening agenda. Our next Board of Estimates bid opening is September 3rd, 2025. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and thank you, TV 25.